The Marblehead Regiment by William J. Legier III. When studying the early part of the American Revolution, the Marblehead Regiment stands out for its significant contributions and the fact that it had saved Washington's army on several occasions. The regiment was prominently featured in the A.E. movie The Crossing, where they were responsible for the victory at Trenton. It would be assumed that there would be a wealth of literary novels and the usual fluff about such a noted group. Few regiments in the entire Continental Army were in more critical engagements or rendered more excellent service. To date, minimal literature exists on the specific subject. Despite the limitations of the existing documentation, the consensus among historians who have looked at the regiment is that nothing negative can be said about it, and its greatness is without question. The question becomes, why does the literature not exist? The most glaring questions are relative to the need for more research. Questions such as why have the Marblehead Regiment yet to receive its due accolades? Why is there no significant research? What, if any, exists that prohibited the study in the past? And is it possible that there were biases relative to the historical research that may have made historians look in other directions? These four questions speak to the most critical elements of the potential research. There exists a considerable difference between the historical significance of the Marblehead Regiment and the amount of research in scholarly writings. It is not simply a perceived void, but an actual and alarming hole in relative to true heroes of the American Revolution. The Marblehead Regiment would have been the most diverse group in Washington's army, which may be the reason why the literature doesn't exist. The Marblehead Regiment would have had the most significant number of Africans, Catholics, Mid-Europeans, and soldiers from all corners of the globe, and many mixed-race members. This was not what Washington had in mind for his Anglo-Saxon army. The modern milieu of historical research would certainly embrace these elements. The racial diversity of the regiment, along with its acknowledged prejudice by other continental units, only makes the achievements of this unit more important. The Marblehead Regiment was the most significant military unit in the American Revolution, but little or no research has been done on the men who served in this unit. The socioeconomic status, along with the lack of formal education of the members of the Marblehead Regiment, has caused biased research on the actual regimental members. The racial makeup of the company may have also accounted for the historians avoiding the subject in previous generations. The justification for the significance of the unit is this: these soldiers probably did more for the American army than any other unit, and other than John Glover, their leader, we know nothing of them. They saved Washington's army several times and were responsible for the victory at Trenton. Those are the several general and dramatic statements, but they can quickly be established with even limited documentation. It neglects the regiment's success in the Battle of Pell's Point, where the regiment took on a force 4 times its size and held them off, protecting Washington's escape. Proper documentation will require a narrative and timeline to place the regiment or most of the company into its location and activities. The unit will be fragmented on several occasions because of sea duty. The Continental Navy will be initially formed from the Marblehead Regiment. The first 2 ships, the Hannah, will be owned and outfitted by Colonel Glover. The following 2 ships will also come from and be full of Marblehead soldiers and sailors. All 3 of the ship captains will come from the Marblehead Regiment. Understanding the fragmentation element, any timeline will look more like a family tree than an actual timeline. The regiment has unique abilities absent in many of the units that initially swelled the Continental Army. They were the first Marines. The men of the Marblehead Regiment were just as adept fighting aboard ship as they were fighting in aligned infantry formations. The men of the Marblehead Regiment were used to strict discipline aboard ships, and they served on previous to the military service. They were used to taking orders and were aware of the consequences of not following them. One missed knot on the line of a ship meant the difference between life and death that the men of the Marblehead Regiment faced daily. While at sea, it is also reported in all available documents that Colonel Glover was a strict disciplinarian and a rigorous taskmaster who prepared his men before the actual conflict. Most militia organizations of the time before the Revolution would meet at the local tavern, march for an hour, and then spend the rest of the day in the bar. The Marblehead Regiment would distinguish itself early on and be specifically pointed out by Washington as a model unit that he wished other divisions would follow. This event would also be where Washington would show his disdain for the culturally diverse nature of the company in a letter to his brother. These and other reasons are reasons why the research must continue and must proceed on the Marblehead Regiment. And I'm happy to report that I've been given permission to access all the archives, and I will be starting up there on March 15th, and I plan on spending 3 days, and I'll be digitizing all the papers relative to the Marblehead Regiment. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.